Nicole Bremner, it is lovely to have you on the hashtag She Can platform. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
My name's Nicole Bremner, as you said, and I am an investor mainly in property, but also in some startups in very different areas. And I run a podcast, which is the Nicole Bremner podcast. What else? I speak occasionally at events. I've written a book, and I'm a mum.
Sounds amazing. Nicole, how did you get there? Tell us a little bit about your journey and your story.
So the way that I got into property investing and investing in general, is through a background in financial services. I'm Australian, so I started off in Australia as a financial planner. I was the youngest ever qualified financial advisor in Australia at the time. And this is back in 1999. And so, yeah, started off there doing that, and then met a man from Germany, and he was looking to come back to Europe, and he said, "Hey, I've got a job in Europe. Do you want to come with me to London?" I went, "Yeah, of course." So I traveled to London, tried to get a job in London, and found the market very, very difficult in 2000. It was when the tech bubble burst. So it was just a really challenging time to try and find work. Ended up working in a gym, picking up dirty towels off the floor. Finally, I got a really good job at a fund manager. And that lasted for a couple of years, or a few years, until we moved to New York, my partner and I. And we had a fantastic couple of years in New York, had our first child, our first son, Ralph. And then and I got a job actually on Wall Street, which was always my dream, to work on Wall Street. So that was just incredible. But then Lehman Brothers collapsed on my first day of work. So again, it was just a really tumultuous time to work in banking. And so we decided to move back to London. Moved back to London, found out I was pregnant with my second boy, Timo, and realized that there's no way I could go back into banking. It was too difficult with two children and two people working in banking. So I looked at other options, and that's really what led me to property, is that I'd renovated my own home in that time, and this is now 2009, 10, 11. Renovated my own home, had my next child, a little girl called Romy, and I was just looking for something to do, and property really worked for me. I loved it. I loved the way that it was using my financial skills, but also using my creative skills, and I was able to just really understand what would make a good family home and a good investment as well. And I bought properties that were unloved and converted them into homes that people loved and could raise their families in. And that's really how I got started in property. And that then led to more and more investments and bigger properties, and also investing into some other ventures as an angel investor as well.
Nicole, it's such a fascinating story, and I love it because I think it's such a female story. You know, out of need, you really invented yourself in a different way. Can I ask? I read up about you, obviously, and I read that you have lately changed that investment strategy slightly. I'd be quite interested to know more about that.
Yeah, it was really necessity, because we'd done so much property investing up until 2017, and the market was very buoyant, but then it wasn't. And there were tax changes, we had the Brexit announcement, and stamp duty changes, and the tax on how landlords are taxed on their various holdings. And that really caused quite a stir in the property market, and it meant that the market was stagnant for years. It's only just in 2020 that the market started picking up again, and the housing market in the UK was up 7.4% last year. So it really was out of necessity, because what I normally did is bought, renovated, and sold, or bought, built, and sold. And that strategy just didn't work anymore. What I needed to do was look at holding those investments. And that's what we really did, as we looked at the investments and looked at what properties we should sell off and what we should hold. And really, it was down to anything that was Help to Buy and was selling very quickly, we sold, and we reinvested the money back in to make sure the debt levels were lower, and held on to the things that were not so easy to sell, but in the future, when property market hopefully keeps going up again in a few years' time, then we'll be in a better place to sell out of those at a higher price.
Yeah. Well done, Nicole. That's really amazing. What do you think it could be 1, 2, or 3 most important or pivotal moments of your life story or career?
Yeah, I think it's achieving some things that I never thought were possible. So I would have to say writing a book was a really momentous occasion for me. I'd not had a wedding. So for me, my book launch was kind of that party. I didn't have a 40th birthday party because I was alone in New York with no friends. I'd only just moved there. So not 40th, sorry, 30th, and then 40th later on. I just hadn't had a chance to have a proper party. So to me, my book launch really felt like a big party, a big celebration. And it was also quite it was quite humbling or displacing almost to have this big goal, publishing a book, and you spend so much time writing it and editing it and refining it and launching it. And it was very successful, and it sold across Daily Mail featured it for the launch, and it was just a very successful book. And so that was one thing. And then going back, I was the youngest ever qualified financial advisor in Australia, and I don't think at the time I truly appreciated what that was and how difficult it was. And I've never really valued my intelligence, and yet looking back at some of the things I've achieved, I have to tell myself, you're intelligent. You can't do these things. You can't pass the CFP or the CFA and these other various exams the way that you did without having some level of intelligence. So for me, it's just a good reminder to keep up on my wall that you passed these, you did well in these, and you could do that. And then I think more recently, just the podcast, and it provided me last year in around September, October, when I was just coming out of a really dark time. Like I know a lot of people were at the time, but I was coming out of this very dark time for a number of reasons, with divorce and the property investments and things. And what I needed was something that was a kind of a quick win, or something that I could do that would give me a purpose and a mission and a reason to get out of bed each day. And my podcast was it. And so for me, relaunching this podcast that I've been running quite sporadically since 2017, relaunching that and getting it to the top 5% globally has just been a really big deal for me. And again, it's I don't make money. My kids come in here and go, do you make any money with that podcast? And I go, no, but it just gives me such a level of fulfillment that I didn't have before, and I haven't had for a while. Because remember, as an entrepreneur, you don't get the feedback that you would if you're an employee. So for me, it's very important to have these things that give you feedback and give you some positivity and a purpose.
I love that. And it's very inspiring, Nicole. And you're obviously an incredible woman. Tell us, as a last question, what motivates you? What gets you out of bed every day? What is it that you feel you need to achieve, you still need to achieve?
Yeah, I think my children definitely make me get out of bed every morning. Some days it's certainly harder than others. I've got 3 little children running around. I haven't even made their lunch yet. It's 20 to 3 and I haven't made their lunch. That's how busy I've been. But I think that for me, I realized in the last couple of years that I had been striving for money and status, probably in the reverse order, actually, status and then money. And these things are transient. Your status can go up and down based on the whims of people online who don't even know you, who make a snap judgment on you based on what they see, this small little window into your life on social media, or if they see you speaking. And so that's very transient, and you can't control what people think of you. And then with the money, I realized that I was working so hard and so intensely for money and for everything that money bought. And yet ultimately, all I wanted was freedom and time, and the time to do what I really loved with the people that I really loved and at a time that I really loved. So for me, it's about just looking at what is important. And for me, it's time. It's the only thing that we can never make more of in our life. So I think for me, it's all about time and just looking at what I want to do in the future. And what I want to do actually is jump on a sailboat with my partner and sail around and go to communities where we can really make a difference, and in the South Pacific, for example, and help to do something, and do something really worthwhile where we don't need much. All we need is a few clothes, some fresh food, and a boat and fresh water, and that's pretty much it. And that's how we want to live our life once the children are old enough to fend for themselves, obviously, and have finished school.
Nicole, I love your all your storytelling, and I think it's highly inspiring. So I can't thank you enough for, telling us your story so warmly and open-heartedly.